So you want me to tell you the story of my life?
Like I said, that's what I do. I interview people. I'm a collector of lives.
Welcome to Table Talk. I'm Heath, and I'll be your host. This is the show where I go one-on-one with a creator, author, illustrator, publisher, or other mover and shaker in the world of tabletop games, video games, TV, movies, or any other area of the geekverse.
You followed me here, didn't you?
Yeah, I suppose I did. You seem very interesting. This is where you live?
Yes, this is my home. Welcome.
So, what do you do?
I'm a vampire.
That's something I haven't heard before.
Guests have included individuals such as Lou Anders, the author of the Thrones and Bones fantasy novels, creator and publisher of the Norengard RPG, and even the author of Star Wars, A Pirate's Price.
Bond. James Bond.
Well, not James Bond. I haven't gotten to talk to him yet, but maybe sometime in the future. But how about Brian Colin, the creator of the vast, grim, dark horror RPG and sculptor of the world of Revelo monster busts? Mark Tassin, the creator of the world of Italtus, head of Mechanical Muse, and the head developer of the new Cool Name RPG. I've spoken with Jeff Engelstein, game designer and former commentator on the Dice Tower. He and I got deep into the statistics, probability, and psychological function of dice in tabletop games. Jamie Stegmaier, the founder of Stonemaier Games and crowdfunder extraordinaire. He's published many hit board games like Scythe and Wingspan. I've spoken with Sydney Engelstein from Indie Boards and Cards to talk about what it really takes to publish a board game in today's environment and what it would take for you to get published if you were trying to get a publisher for your board game. I've spoken with Ajit George about game writing, education, and his contribution to Van Richter's Guide to Ravenloft and his development of the Journey Through the Radiant Citadel Dungeons & Dragons book. Let's see, who else have I spoken to?
I am Hela, Odin's firstborn, commander of the legions of Asgard, the rightful heir to the throne and the goddess of death.
Yes, I really appreciate her taking the time to speak with me. That was a great interview. I've also spoken with Cameron Pasha, a writer and novelist who's been working in Hollywood for over 20 years. His projects have included Emmy and Golden Globe nominated Sleeper Cell, Kings, Nikita, and Roswell, New Mexico. His analysis and commentary have been very popular on YouTube. I've gotten to speak with Paul Shadow, the former network executive who has made quite a splash here on YouTube with his reaction videos to current movies and films. He and I discussed the status of independent film and web productions online today. Brianna De Silva is a reoccurring guest on the show and a very popular one at that. She's an author and director, and she was also the co-writer of the cultist comedy web show that's here on the channel. She and I regularly meet to study and analyze stories. I've also gotten to speak with of the Positive Fandom channel. She's an ally in our effort to be a positive and constructive force in the geekverse. Are you ready? Have you got your drink? Are you all settled in? You might want to buckle up because it could be a wild ride. We're about to explore the worlds of tabletop gaming, sci-fi, fantasy, and the geekverse through the eyes of those who are making things happen.
Atomic batteries to power. Turbines to speed.
Roger. Ready to move out.
It's time for Table Talk. Hello, everyone. It is so good to have you here. Welcome to Table Talk at a special time this afternoon. This is a very special Table Talk because I have an extremely special guest tonight, Katie Wilson. She is going to be one of the hosts of the new Table Talk News project that just funded on Kickstarter. They've got 3 more days to go, so they're going to stretch goals, but this project is going to happen in order to bring a new television or new show. I think it's supposed to be broadcast on the internet and also out to all kinds of different social media. They've talked about that in extensively about chopping it up and sending it out to lots of social media platforms about what's going on in the tabletop world as a weekly show, talking about 10 different shows. So she is one of the hosts of the show, as I said, and I just found out about this project last night. I reached out to the project creators and I was like, hey, I would love to have you on Table Talk because they hadn't funded as of last night. They were short like $1,000 or $1,500 or something like that. So I said, I would love to have you on Table Talk, and Katie agreed. So more than likely, you already know her. She seems to be everywhere already in the geekverse. You can find her on the Sci-Fi Wire. I was looking at her videos going to Comic-Con. She's live streaming Pathfinder 2nd Edition on the Paizo channel. She's an actress. You can see her on Hulu's Into the Dark, and she's also going to be on another major network show coming up this fall. We can't say what it is, but that's coming up. And of course, she also has her own YouTube show, our YouTube channel, where she makes videos, she live streams there. And one of the most popular videos, or I think the most popular video on that channel, is a Lara Croft fan film. So please, everyone, welcome Katie. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. What an introduction. Can I just hire you to just introduce me everywhere I go? That was amazing. Thank you.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. What else should people know about you, Katie? You want to introduce yourself then and tell people?
Honestly, I think you hit everything. Yeah, I've been a part of the nerd world ever since I was about 5 years old, to be honest. My nerdiness came from watching Xena Warrior Princess, and that got me into medieval fantasy, and then I got into board gaming and card games and TTRPGs. Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think I could introduce myself better than what you just did. But hi, everyone.
Well, it is a pleasure to have you here, especially on such short notice.
Yeah, honestly, we're so happy that it worked out. And I can't believe you just found us yesterday. That's kind of amazing.
Yeah, me too. I should have known about it much earlier. But that's the reason why we need tabletop news, because there's so much stuff happening you can't follow it all.
100%. That's exactly why we wanted to make Tabletop News, because there's so many incredible people out there who are making amazing content already that people don't know about, you know, and if you do know about them, it's usually a group of really dedicated fans. And so we kind of want to be a hub to be able to spotlight all those amazing people already doing these really cool things.
Okay, so you want to say what Tabletop is then? I mean, that's basically Tabletop News then. What is it? And I'll bring up the Kickstarter page as well.
Yeah.
Which,
so
by the way, the link to that is in the description, but I'll put it in the comments as well.
Cool. Yeah. Tabletop News is a weekly series where we are going to be talking about all things tabletop gaming, card games, board games, war games, events, the community. Because as I mentioned, there's already so many amazing podcasts, live streams, creators, journalists who are already making amazing content. We just want to be able to be a hub to be able to showcase those people. We really want to focus on smaller game developers, smaller creators, BIPOC creators, to really just kind of make sure that everyone who has a voice in the space, who wants to be seen, can kind of get out there in a way that doesn't necessarily exist right now. So we're going to be doing weekly episodes, and you'll be able to watch the show in one place. But we are going to be cutting down all of our segments into what I like to call like snackable bite sizes, and bringing that to whatever social media platform you like the best. Because if you're watching on TikTok, you don't want to leave TikTok and go watch a full video elsewhere. You probably just want to get your news on TikTok. So wherever you get your social media or wherever on social media you get your news, we're going to bring it to you. So you don't really have to do as much work. So we got it up $150,000. You up to 153 now. I put the link down in there. We're headed to stretch goals. We'll get to those in just a second. But this is going to be a weekly show. How long is an episode? Honestly, right now we're talking about 15 minutes, but honestly, they may end up being a little bit longer, just depending, because it depends on what news there is that week. So some episodes might be a little bit longer. Some episodes might be a little bit shorter.
And let's see, just going down here before you get to the team. So 10 episode initially funded by this Kickstarter, cutting it up like you were just talking about it. Okay, and you mentioned that that other people were ready to do this, but that now there is this gap because there is no more Geek and Sundry. I don't think they're really operational anymore. G4 TV tanked, so now there's this hole.
Yeah, and yeah, we just wanted to be able to be a place that kind of covered everything. There's a lot of sources that either do really long form content, like live streams, or longer content. So we really wanted to be a video content platform that is easy for you to get your news in small little bits. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And the 10 episodes is basically our launching off point, because we plan to not stop. We don't plan to do another Kickstarter after the 10 episodes. We plan to have this Kickstarter basically be our launching off point so we can continue for this to be a weekly show without stopping.
So you do talk about that you didn't want this to be a corporatized production.
Yeah.
You want this is so it's crowdfunded. It's brought together. You've got a little bit of an origin story here, but then also the number of people who have brought together here. So how did this come together with such an amazing team of people?
Honestly, it came together in kind of a crazy way. Our executive producer, Adam Rady, and our other producer, Michelle Wynn Bradley, basically had the same idea where they wanted to create a news source, a news show that focused primarily on video content, and that would be easy to digest and fun and interactive. And most importantly, we wanted the community to be involved. Because as we mentioned in there is a lot of corporatized productions where you basically have people that talk about either one game or just the biggest games that are out there right now. And we didn't want that. You know, we are avid board gamers. We are, a lot of us are huge card gamers, and we all love TTRPGs. So we really wanted to talk about all aspects of tabletop gaming in one place that doesn't also cover video games and movies and TV. We're just talking tabletop gaming, and most importantly, the community, because there are so many incredible stories out there of people who maybe have been gaming or doing a board game night for 50 years. We want to hear those stories. We want to share those stories. So that's why it was the most important for us to crowdfund on Kickstarter, because we wanted the community to be the ones to fund us and not have to go and, you know, we did not want that overall corporate conglomerate structure. So we're really excited. We were just fun today, so energy's a little high.
Yeah, it was fun to. Like, I checked when I was on a live stream this morning when I was emailing with whoever is actually running the main contact account. I was on the morning live stream, and we checked in, and you had just funded, and then I got the email. So
I know it was amazing, and we weren't sure. We got really close on Friday after our live stream. I think we were really close to hitting the goal. But as Kickstarter is, it's up, down, up, down, up, down. It's a roller coaster ride. And it was just so wonderful to be able to wake up this morning and then that happened. And so we were all on cloud nine.
Okay. So we got the rewards down over here that we can go through. Some of them at like early bird sold out, but you did say that, okay, we're also headed towards stretch goals. So did you want to talk about those?
Yeah. So our stretch goals are really exciting. I know on the actual Kickstarter, it may say like more episodes or being able to get more crew, but it's so important to us. Our show requires researchers. It requires writers. It requires hosts. It requires a lot of extremely talented people to pull off a weekly show like this. So our stretch goals really help us be able to do more things with our show. Like I said, I want to be able to cover more community aspects. And instead of maybe having to do them virtually, if we can hit a stretch goal, we'd be able to maybe go on the ground, visit them wherever they are, to be able to tell a more in-person story with the community members. I know we also are really trying to be able to get to conventions because we want to be on the ground when they're talking about news, you know, so the Gen Cons, Origin, the Comic Cons, we want to be able to get there to showcase and to be able to be where the news is breaking. And that is a very, very costly thing to bring a crew to a convention. There's even things we've been racking our brains about just how complicated it is. So if you see someone filming something at a convention, you should go up to them and be like, good job, because it's a really tough feat. It really is. Like, just thinking about it, you have to have your camera, obviously, your sound. You have a host. You have to have a producer there, making sure that if you're scheduled to do an interview or you're scheduled to be at a booth at a certain time, that you get there. And then what happens when your cards run out in the camera? Well, you got to have a PA be able to take the card and bring it to an editor who then's got to turn it around really, really quickly. Anyway, sorry, a little behind the curtain on the production process, but there's a lot that goes into doing a live show. So we hope we can get there eventually.
Yeah, well, there's a lot that goes into a live show. There's a lot that goes into doing non-live shows. I mean, whatever type of what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and we're not a live show. I always say that. I meant like live to edit.
Right. Yeah. Because that's actually the post-production is also a huge thing. Because and even just because you go to the convention, you get all the footage. Okay, well, that doesn't mean you can go out. There's a whole lot of stuff that has to happen after that.
Definitely. And if anyone's ever tried to connect to convention Wi-Fi, that could be a big struggle.
So how are you planning? This is an interesting part because you talked about this is the launching off point for trying to get these 10 episodes done. But then what's the plan then to continue the funding for this? This is sponsored. We're seeking sponsorship. Is that what's going on? You're trying to, you hope it will be sponsored after this?
Definitely. Yeah. We've already been contacted by a lot of amazing small companies that are interested in partnering with us in the future, as well as through our Kickstarter. We actually had sponsorship tiers that we had available for smaller companies. And we're just so grateful that we have a lot of these companies and brands who want to partner with us. It's exciting, especially because I think we're offering a lower price point than other places to advertise. And so it's kind of giving the smaller brand or the smaller company an opportunity to sponsor and to advertise in a way that hopefully doesn't break their bank trying to go for the top guys,
Okay, so we were talking about the expenses of things in general, which is why this is going here. But this is also, you can tell by the Kickstarter video. There's some videos already out on the YouTube channel. You can tell by the imagery that is going on here. In fact, I could probably play some of it because, did you guys actually? How did you guys make this? So this sample right here.
Yeah. So funny enough, we wanted to pull together some clips to see how a show like this would look, what we could do basically. So we did a tiny little bit of test footage basically over the summer. So this was last summer and it was right in between San Diego Comic-Con and Gen Con. So we reached out to so many of our friends who live in LA because obviously we had no money to be able to pay anyone. So we were like, hi friends, want to come just read a couple lines off a teleprompter so we can kind of gauge what this is going to look like and get an idea. Because, we weren't ready to film an entire pilot. Also, news from last July wouldn't make any sense today.
Right, yeah.
So we basically wrote up some pieces. We were trying to understand how that was going to work out. And we called up our friends, and these are the folks that came out so graciously, and we love all of them. But we're looking to add to that too, and that's something that our stretch goals could definitely help us with. We want to bring more faces onto Tabletop News. A lot of our hosts are familiar faces within the community, but we also want to introduce new faces to the community because we think that's really important too, to not just use people who are, to have hosts that are familiar, but to also bring in some new faces.
So you're shooting this out in LA. So this will be an LA production.
Yes.
So when we're talking about the expenses, YouTube is used to the things that we're doing right now, this type of discussion, this kind of thing. And I've talked to other people about this subject as far as independent production goes and how we can do things. There's probably a less expensive way to do something similar with a lower production value. What makes this so valuable? Like doing it in this particular style, as opposed to, say, this YouTube StreamYard style, like I have here in my office.
I think it's that there are already so many people who are doing that. And we want to be able to provide a high production value, not just for the community and for the people watching, but for the sponsors as well. And we've built our set, as you can see behind me.
Oh, you're on the set right now?
I am on the set.
Oh, awesome. Hold on. Let me solo you so that we can see what's going on there.
Yes.
Oh, well, that's cool.
Yes. And I'm not recording on a professional camera right now. So you can kind of see our ceiling and all the other things. But yeah, no, this is the set. So that's already built, ready to go, which we're excited about. But we are going to do what we can afford. We will probably be doing some form of virtual interviews because, it's not feasible to get into the same room, but we also want to get to a point where we can kind of have maybe some local hosts or people from around the world that we can kind of call upon to be like, hey, you are a host out of Germany. Can you attend this event and can you cover it? So just to be able to, and we also believe in paying people fair rates. So we, all of us producers have been working completely free. We have not been making any money, and a lot of us have put aside our own personal work to work on this because we're really passionate about that, and we want to be able to pay everyone. So yeah, we want to be able to eventually get to a point where we can, hire people in different places that isn't just California to be able to extend our coverage worldwide.
So yes, and I see that you do have that in here. So not only are you the host, but you're actually one of the producers of the show as well.
Yes. Yeah. And all of us producers, I have to say, I don't think I've worked with a more resilient group of people. We're all wearing about 1,000 different hats right now, which is insane. But, you got to do what you got to do. We don't have the funds, to be hiring a bunch of people. We don't have like a huge like social media team or anything like that. It's literally myself, and we have a social media person that is working with me, and then we have Michelle working on marketing with someone helping her as well, and then it's just the producers. So we're wearing a lot of hats, and we're a really small team, but we're doing our best.
So I've seen projects like this, the large production value tabletop projects out in LA. I've seen some examples of those that have not worked. And yet this one has worked, like to the point right now that you've raised the $150,000 in order to produce these shows. So, so this seems to be an anomaly as far as like what I've seen, because like I said, I've seen things that do not work. Why do you think this one has worked when others have not?
That's interesting. Specifically because I know that there's a lot of, I've seen a lot of TTRPG actual plays get funded on Kickstarter, and their goals tend to be usually between 150 to 200,000 for about 10 episodes of a live play or a podcast. So I do think that they have been successful in the past. I can't specifically think of a video news source like what we're trying to do. I don't think I've seen someone crowdfund for that before. And I think that's kind of why a lot of people are excited about it, because there are so many different niches and pockets of the tabletop community across the internet. And we want to be able to bring everyone together and showcase all forms of tabletop gaming. And I think there's a lot of people who are excited about that. Also, tabletop gaming isn't, there are some sources that maybe aren't as accessible to a more casual gamer, or is too basic for simple, I guess, or only covering the niche things for the hardcore gamers who maybe like a certain game. So we kind of want to be a place that's a little bit accessible for everybody. If you like a certain game, or you want to learn about a game that isn't as big, we're going to try to make that accessible for all levels of gaming and gamers, which is a difficult feat. But that's why we wanted the community to be involved, because we want to hear from the community. We want to talk about games and events and coverage that they want to see. And it's not necessarily like what games we like. It's what the community wants.
Mm-hmm. Well, what you're describing in general, what you're going to cover sounds so ambitious for 15 minutes, right? Like,
yeah, it is.
It be like an hour long show you could be doing and talking about all of these things.
Well, we're hoping that we can cover the basics of a topic in a short form enough way to be able to cover multiple topics in an episode. So, and if news happens throughout the week, we're going to make it work.
Yeah. And as far as a straight news show, I suppose this is the first one that I've seen, but I have seen several tabletop shows who have spent, and I suppose in this way that it's actually being done right, I suppose in this way that you're talking about, I don't know how much money has been spent already, but it might not be much. That I've seen people who have spent a tremendous amount of money on pilots, like a tremendous amount of money on pilots to try to
Yeah.
pitch shows in the tabletop gaming space, for instance, to Netflix and try
Yep.
to get it picked up someplace. And I was listening to the amount of money that was spent and the operation and things like that to get to shoot a pilot and try to, and it's just, I've never seen it happen. So maybe you guys have the right formula then.
Yeah, I mean, maybe it's just because I live in LA and I'm surrounded by so many gamers who have made successful podcasts or have been able to crowdfund for their whether it's their short films or their live plays. So I just feel like the community, at least as far as I'm concerned, I love being involved and to be able to help the tabletop community. So that's why I love being able to fund or help fund other Kickstarters for tabletop gaming and podcasts and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting. It's all really exciting right
It
now.
must be. I would be ecstatic if I were you. I love producing shows and things like that. So that you guys have yours up and running like this is fantastic. Well, okay. So let me say, first of all, if you're here, if you're watching live, please do like and subscribe. It'd be great to have you. I do the Morning Grind live show every morning at 9:30 a.m. We've been very tabletop, especially tabletop RPG focused, and looking at different. We've probably looked at probably about 110 different tabletop RPG systems and learning how to play. We unboxed and learned how to play the latest He-Man Masters of the Universe board game this morning. That's what I was doing when I was actually arranging this this live stream. But then we also have table talk generally in the evenings where I talk with some other creators. So if you're here, or if the algorithm has brought you here, or if you're watching on replay, I would love to have you. Okay, so let's also say, okay, so now this particular Kickstarter is tabletop RPG focused.
No, all forms of tabletop.
Excuse me. I just meant tabletop game focused. It's
Yes.
tabletop game focused.
Yes.
It's tabletop game focused. Generally speaking, I've found that the tabletop side of things, the tabletop side of what I call the Geekverse, which is the part of the channel here, and then also things like the TV and movie side of things don't seem to cross all that often. Now, I said this project is the tabletop, but you yourself play in both spheres. So you are making that work. Why do you think that seems to be a difficult? Because I wouldn't think of it as a terribly difficult crossover audience, but it seems to be that way. But you're making it work. Do you have how is that?
You mean personally, not as tabletop news?
No, right. You personally, right? Yeah. You're operating in both spheres.
I'm just a big nerd, and I've been creating content online for over 13 years. So I've kind of covered everything in my time. And I did work as a host for the Sci-Fi Network for a long period of time. And we talked about all sorts of things, from video gaming to tabletop gaming to movies and television.
Right.
It's just something that I'm passionate about. And I think it's really important just as a person to be able to work in a field that you enjoy and that you're passionate about. And I've just been really lucky that I get to kind of dabble in all these amazing communities.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it is that makes tabletop gaming so appealing?
You know, I'll tell you why I love tabletop gaming so much. I grew up an only child, so I didn't really have a whole lot of people to play games with. And I remember having a lot of board games as a kid, and parents will play with you when they can, but they're busy, they're working. So there was a lot of times that I sat there playing a board game by myself. And this is so sad, but like hoping that one day I'd be able to find a group of friends that liked gaming. And it was kind of a struggle for me all throughout like middle school and high school to find people that were into role-playing games or even board games. And so it was a little bit later, like when I moved out to LA, and I found a group of friends who loved board games, loved TTRPGs. And that's why I think that these games are so special, because it really, when you find people that you can play with, it becomes a part of your everyday. And now we have board game nights almost every single week. I mean, we're doing 3 live streams a week right now where we play board games, but aside and personally, we're playing games all the time. And it's a sense of community. It's a sense of family and fun. And to me, it's a really good way to kind of escape the troubles of everyday life and to be able to dive into a game and either work with your friends or absolutely wreck them.
Well, that was probably before the solo gaming was even much of a thing.
Yes.
I see lots of games today that have the solo option. We were looking at the He-Man game today, and it had the solo option, and we were reading its AI and stuff like that. But that's kind of a new phenomenon too.
Yeah. I honestly, that is such an amazing thing that I think a lot of kids will have an opportunity to get into gaming a little bit younger, because if you don't have brothers and sisters or cousins nearby to play with, then, you're kind of stuck hoping your friends won't think you're too nerdy, which now it's cool to be a nerd. But when I was a kid walking around going, I love Xena Warrior Princess, who wants to role play and play a board game? I was a nerd. I was a nerd. And now I think it's a lot cooler, I guess, to play games, which I think is nice. I think that's nice for the generations growing up today who can play alone or find people. And the internet, like being able to find someone to play with across the internet is incredible, especially all the games that have been converted to virtual tabletops that's just amazing. And it allows more access for people to be able to get into games or to play new games and to meet people. I think that's really important.
When did you get into role-playing then? Because I've seen you on the Paizo channel doing Pathfinder and stuff like that.
So around when I was like 18, I would say, I started getting into it. I played a game of D&D in high school, but it was with people who didn't know how to play and kind of made it up. But then once I was 18, I moved out to LA and I found a group of friends, and that's kind of when I started playing. I think I started with 3.5, and then I think I played, I can't remember if I ever played 4, but then 5. And then I got into Pathfinder, and Pathfinder was really exciting to me at the time. This was well before the 2nd edition came out. I just loved all the third-party content and all the amazing things that you could do with a character. My very first Pathfinder character, because I'm crazy, was a character, it was a class called Elementalurgist. Makes no sense. But it was basically a druid that could tune into a different element each day. So I could tune into 2 elements a day, and be able to pull my spells from those spell lists that were that went alongside the elements that I chose for the day. And I was able to give buffs based upon those elements too. It was really cool. But yeah, that's what really got me into Pathfinder, was just all the different ways that you could build these crazy characters. And then when 2nd edition came out, I loved the action economy, and it felt simplified in a good way to me. So I'm really into 2nd edition right now. And then there's also so many other TTRPGs I haven't even had a chance to play yet that I really want to. Vampire the Masquerade, I want to play that so bad. So that's kind of on my list to try to get a group of friends together to play that.
How did you get connected with Paizo to be streaming on there?
Yeah, I got connected through Two Kings Entertainment. So Adam Rady and James Rodehaver of Two Kings Entertainment, who are the production company behind Tabletop News, they were making content with Paizo, and were like, hey, we need a player. And I was like, heck yeah. Let's do it. Well, it actually started with me playing Pathfinder on the DAT network, which is owned by Adam and Jim. And then from there, teamed up with Paizo, and I got to do a few shows on Paizo, which was really fun.
Okay, then let's talk a little bit about making shows then, because you were talking about how does this get started? Because like I said, this is obviously a huge operation. But when you're talking about starting out, or how do you make something like this happen? Because we talk about those kinds of things on this channel as well, because we're interviewing different creatives and things like that. How how does something like this get started in the real beginning?
In which way? For tabletop news or for me personally?
Well, I suppose let's talk about you. Actually, let's talk about you personally first. Then we can talk about the production of tabletop news.
Yeah.
Okay. So how about you personally?
So I got my start when I moved out to LA, and I was booking hosting and acting work. And I started to be in all of these different YouTubers videos, whether as a host or an actor. And I was gaining subscribers, and my friends were like, start a channel, like put something out on your channel. And I was like, but I'm just a big nerd. Like nobody's going to want to hear about my love of like Legend of the Seeker at the time, which is a TV show and book series. And so my friends were like, just throw it up there, talk about what you like and see what happens. And that's when I started creating content on my YouTube channel. And it has taken many variations and different forms throughout the years. But from making standard vlogs and countdown lists and reviews, I started getting into producing sketches and short films. And so I kind of just taught myself throughout the years. I taught myself how to use Adobe Premiere, how to use Photoshop, how to use a camera. I didn't go to school for this, so it was really all a learn as you go. And then just a lot of begging your friends for favors and credit card debt.
Well, what has been the relationship then between your own social media, like your YouTube channel, and your professional career and professional success?
You can ask them. They're in your chat. What do you guys think? Isaac, Zach, Joey, Aaron, I see you all in there. Honestly, I think it's really cool. I think for the most part, my audience was not they were not at least that vocal about tabletop gaming. And I think I've been able to introduce people to tabletop gaming. And now just in my own Discord, there's maybe like 4 games now that people are running for the community, for my personal community, which is really exciting because I get to kind of share that love with others. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think there's, a section of people that go, well, I want you to just make this one thing. And then you have other people that are like, hey, I just want to know about cool things. I just want to see you have fun and learn about something. And yeah, that's where I kind of think we're at. Oh, Gwen just said, Katie, help me get into Pathfinder. Hadn't tried it before. So
there we go.
Yeah.
Well, that's now what you're talking about and the different audiences, I think goes back to what I was talking about earlier. It's difficult, or can be difficult, but it's not for you, obviously, to play in both you're talking about the TV shows that you like, as well as the tabletop games that you like and things like that. And you've made all of that blend happen for you personally. Now, yeah. I had heard from some people like, okay, gee, you're trying to get this acting gig or something like that. And I'm not trying to become an actor, so I just hear this from other people who are saying, like, what do you need to be? Like how important is your social media following when trying to apply for something? So that's what I was kind of wondering, that like, oh, well, because you've got this and you tell people about it, is that something that is important when you're doing your work as an actress in other shows, or is it unrelated?
Good question. That's a really good question. I would say I don't think I have experience with my social media helping my acting in any way, but I do know from friends who have firsthand stories of going into auditions, and casting will ask, oh, how many Twitter followers do you have? How many whatever do you have? Do you make content on social media? But I've never been asked that personally. I would say no, I've never been asked that personally by casting or anything. But I also think that's because I was acting before I really got into making content online. So I had agents and managers. So it always was a little bit separate. But when it can cross over, that would be amazing.
Yeah, I've heard people say like, what do you want me to be? Do you want me to be a really good actor, or do you want me to be really good at Twitter?
Exactly. Yeah, they don't necessarily go hand in hand. Having a good Twitter and being a good actor are not the same thing.
But unfortunately,
a
sometimes
lot of writers. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was saying sometimes I think people get discouraged and they're like, well, you might have to be both.
True. That's so true. I would say I know a lot of writers who have gotten work off of Twitter, whether it's just reaching out to another writer or a person you admire. I have a lot of friends who have managed to have doors open for them via being writers and writing really good tweets. But for me personally, I do think that if I ever give someone advice on being an actor or a director or a producer, it's making content. Like, you learn as you go. And I would not be able to produce a show at a high level like Tabletop News without my 13 years experience producing all forms of content, especially on the internet. You have to have experience creating content for the internet and knowing like all the new things. Like, TikTok is different than Facebook, and it's different from Instagram and YouTube. The audiences are different. People like different things, and that's really difficult. So it's kind of the experience is invaluable over the years, and I'm really lucky to work with a team of people who have experiences in a bunch of different areas that maybe aren't mine. So we're a good team.
Well, what about you talked about briefly before we started the live stream about how the production company started then, and you're talking about starting small and starting in a garage.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah.
This might be a hopeful story, maybe.
Okay, so this story's crazy, but the reason I even met Adam and Jim to begin with is because back in like 2011, they cast me in their web series called Walking in Circles, and it was a medieval fantasy web series with a lot of TTRPG undertones, and it was hilarious. And so I did 2 seasons of that with them, and this was at the time where they had never made anything on the internet yet, and this was going to be their thing. This was their big web series, and so they basically put their heart and souls into it, and it did okay. You know, it did. I don't know. Okay, Adam would be laughing right now if he was hearing this, but. From there, you know, I can't say it was like an instant success. It wasn't the Guild, you know, which was a huge success at that time. And, you know, it was just a little YouTube web series. And so from there, they ended up, I know Adam went and worked in production doing live gaming for a company. And then they ended up coming together to do a show called Dragons and Stuff. And this was a live Pathfinder game that they ran every week. And then they were doing it basically with help of this company. And then the company just kind of decided, we're canceling your show. And they were all heartbroken and devastated. And they were like, well, we're not going to let this get us down. And they moved into a garage, a friend's garage, and literally ran hundreds of episodes of that show. Different show. They called it Dragons and Things.
I saw that logo. Yeah.
Dragons and Things. And they ran, hundreds of episodes. And then from there, we did I wasn't a part of Dragons and Stuff or the show Dragons and Things. I just guested on there occasionally. But then later on, I helped produce and host a show called The Board Game Show for the DAT Network. And that was a show where we played board games and we'd bring people on to raise money for charity. And so it was kind of a board game show where the audience could donate and make things happen and take money away from one person. And in the end, all the money went to charity, which was really, really fun. So they worked out of a garage for years. And it was a very small, very warm garage. Very hot in the summers in LA. And basically everyone was squished together on a couch. I think some of those episodes are still available to watch on YouTube and Twitch. But then, the birth of the Crag Cave. Yes, exactly. Chat knows. And then from there, in 2020, they were lucky enough to get the studio that I'm sitting in right now. But unfortunately, it came at a time where they had signed on a 2-year lease at the beginning of 2020. And then 2.5 months later, we all went into a pandemic and nobody could be here and nobody could make anything out of this studio. And I know that that was really kind of devastating to the production team, to them, because they weren't able to use the studio they had been saving years and years to be able to pay for. So yeah, I mean, it's just they've had such a long journey to getting to where they are today. And then, shortly, it was kind of during the pandemic, they were doing a lot of virtual things, and then that kind of skewed into, once we were able to be in person again, doing commercials for different tabletop companies like Sirenscape, Norse Foundry, Tabletop Loot, Paizo, and Beetle and Grimm's. And then it just kind of grew. Like they've been working in the space for years, and networking, and producing good content, and really just gaining the trust of these people. And it led us here.
Well, I think that's inspirational then, that you can start someplace and grow from there. It's a difficult road, and then you also have to deal with survivor bias as well, because you're talking about doing hundreds of episodes from the garage.
Oh yeah.
Most people would not do hundreds of episodes from the garage to keep going.
They did.
But those who do are the ones you hear from. Right?
That's true. They're, like I said, this is a really resilient production team. We've all faced, all forms of having to build our way up within, tabletop gaming, or within just creating content online. So we all kind of have a different experience to be able to bring to producing a show like this.
Now, are you
sorry.
Oh, I was saying, are you part of the production studio, or are you just a producer on this show?
I'm just a producer on this show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, do you plan on bringing any other shows to market?
Me personally, or them?
Well, how about you personally?
Oh,
I mean, you're doing a whole lot on YouTube, but I'm through there.
Eventually, maybe, but as of right now, I just live, breathe, eat, sleep tabletop news. My poor community. I was streaming games every single day on my YouTube channel for about 2.5 years straight. And then, once Tabletop News really ramped up into production and this Kickstarter, they unfortunately haven't seen me on my channel in a couple months. So I am missing all of them, but they've been really supportive.
Now, what type of game was that streaming?
We'd do everything. We would do like virtual tabletop, or we would play video games. I played a lot of video games. Yeah. Especially during the pandemic, it was such an easy way to kind of stay connected to people. And it was really rewarding.
I did see, I see a question go by about the OSR. So were you planning on covering things like the OSR on the tabletop, or I mean, I would guess so, but I mean, there's only 15 minutes. So.
Yeah, honestly, but that's kind of the thing. We feel like there's a lot of places that are already like kind of sensationalizing news, and we don't want to be that kind of platform. We're not going to be sensationalizing any news. We're not going to be giving opinions on any sort of news. But if something does come up like that, or if we were to, the OGL stuff obviously happened this year, and that would definitely be something that was covered. But it wouldn't be. We will not be talking about any drama or any anything that would be sensationalizing something. Just kind of giving people an overall overview of what's going on. I actually had a lot of friends be like, "What's an OGL?" And they're like, "What's going on over there? I don't even know what it is." And these are people who are avid gamers, but they're maybe not locked into the tabletop online community as others are. So we're hoping that a more casual gamer could also, glean some knowledge from watching our show to be able to kind of stay up to date with those things.
Well, that would be important, especially regarding the cost and production value of this, that you need to cast a wide net.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it would have to be a very wide net to reach the largest number of people in 15 minutes. And the news collection itself is not a small part of this, because I was thinking about that. The reason that I even found Tabletop News is because with the morning grind, I was thinking I've been going a little bit longer in the morning on the morning grind. And I was thinking, you know what, maybe I could incorporate, just as a test, maybe some type of news element to that. And then when I was Googling that, I found your Kickstarter, and I was like, oh, wait, somebody's already doing something like this. I should talk to them. But the news collection aspect of this, that like what is even going to be on that show, would be no small part, because if there were already a place that you could go and get the aggregate, you wouldn't be doing this anyway.
Yeah, well, that's funny because you said that, and my initial response was, "You should do that." We think that's awesome. We're not looking to kind of step in and take over what Dice Tower is already doing extremely well. We're not looking to become a Polygon. We're not looking to replace these incredible and talented folks who have been doing this for years very successfully. We're actually looking to work with them, or to be able to showcase them to a wider net, to be able to kind of be that hub to share with other people. And so that's exactly why I think if you want to add news, you should absolutely do it.
We'll try. We'll see. I'm thinking about it.
It's tough. Honestly, it's tough because, we want to have researchers, we want to have writers, and we want to make sure that everything is extremely, there's a lot of transparency with what we're doing. We are offering sponsorships, but we have made it extremely clear that if you sponsor one of our segments, that does not mean that segment is about you. It is, hey, today's segment is sponsored by Heath and his amazing YouTube channel. Check it out here. And now this segment is this, which is different. Right. So we're definitely trying to make sure that we're very transparent about that, and everyone will know which segments are sponsored. Obviously, we're following all FTC guidelines. So, yeah.
Well, I've thought about that a little bit with my own things I'm doing here on YouTube, which is much smaller. But then you got to think about that even more when you're going to something like you're doing. But I think something like that is probably more possible in the tabletop game space than potentially in other spaces, because we do have some number of tabletop game publishers who have sufficient revenue in order to be able to sponsor something. Okay, that's the first hurdle that you've got to get over, obviously. Okay, but you've got some of those who I was thinking, those that I can think of some who would be okay with that. Like, I'm going to sponsor something, and it might be talking about somebody else's stuff.
Yeah.
But that there seems to be at least sufficient, I don't know exactly what you call it. I'm searching for the word here, but the spirit of the general tabletop gaming community, because it is so small, that you could have somebody who has enough revenue to actually warrant actually the ability to sponsor something, and also then would be comfortable with it covering something that doesn't necessarily have to do with them.
Well, honestly, that's something we have been so extremely excited about with the way our system is going, because a lot of these companies say, we want to show the tabletop community that we do support other publishers and other games and other creators. So that's been something that's really exciting, because we're getting a lot of messages from a lot of pretty big companies that are like, hey, we actually love that the segment won't be about us, because we want to show people that we're here to hang. We want to work with the community, and we support the community. And that's kind of what our show is all about.
I see. Let's see. Aaron Plays. I was going to say, Aaron Plays is recommending being your host from Alabama. But hey, that's where I'm from. So
that's my friend Aaron. And no, he cannot. Although, funny story about Aaron, I introduced him to a game called Here to Slay one time when I was in Georgia, and he came out, and we went to a board game bar and played Here to Slay. And now I think he is an avid fan. So that makes me really happy. But no, Aaron, you cannot be a host.
I'm going to drop a little bit of because I'm scrolling through lots of comments here. I'm going to drop a marker in the chat for Q&A, because we're getting close to the end here, but I'm going to put a marker in there. So if you've got something, especially if you're a channel member, or if you got something, a question that has not been addressed, I can go to that marker, and then we can look right there. But when are you planning on going into production?
Hopefully summer. Definitely aiming for summer.
Okay, so you go into production in summer. Would you be shooting what is your shooting schedule going to be like? Because if you're doing the news, are you going to be shooting every week?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
you'd,
yeah.
I mean, you'd have to. I can't think of another way to do it.
Definitely. We would probably have our researchers and writers compiling the stories, and we would have a script go out or a script finished. And then we would probably shoot it the next day and then immediately go into editing for a next day release. So it would be probably like a 72-hour window from finalized script to published on the internet.
And starting this summer.
Don't
and then,
quote me, but hopefully that's how the workflow will work.
Right. Yeah, but sorry. Yeah, because you can't. It's not like one of those things where you're like, all right, we're going into production. We're going to do all 10 episodes.
No, we can't.
That's not going to work.
No, definitely we can't. Because we want to be talking about current news and things that are happening in real time.
Yeah, so that would to be very topical. So you guys have to be there and ready to go into production every week.
Yes.
How long are you planning on taking? So this is the producer side of me who's interested. If you're going to do a 15-minute show, how long are you planning on actually doing photography? Like is it inside one day or like half a day? 1 day, half a day, half a day.
Depends. It depends what the segments are. If there's an interview that day, if we have 1 or 2 hosts joining us, I would say for the most part, half a day. But if there's more news that day, we'll cover more news. So it really just kind of depends what the news is that week and kind of the differing variables of interviews or segments and stuff like that. But that's why we want to have such a large pool of rotating hosts, because we need hosts every week, and we want to make sure that we obviously dealing with scheduling and all that with talent in general can be difficult.
Right.
So we want to have a bunch of people, a bunch of talented folks.
If you guys are out there shooting TV shows, then that's somebody will be gone, right? And but this show has got to continue.
Definitely.
Well, I have to say, I'm really jealous of this project and everything you guys are doing. This sounds amazing. So
thank you.
To be able to pull this together, because I know, I've done web series too, and I know the amount of effort that all of this requires, and especially to make it what you guys are trying to make it look like. It seems like something very special. Okay, wait. Carly says maybe ask Katie about the different segment ideas for the show.
Yeah. That's a great question, Carly. Okay. And also, hi. Okay, so we currently have a segment that I love called News from Your Table, and that is going to be viewer submitted news from their at-home tabletop gaming sessions. So we can kind of get fun stories and news like, oh, today or in last week's campaign, one of our party members decided to fight the dragon, but we're only level 1 and got us all killed. Those sort of kind of fun stories, or whatever it is from your home tables, we want to hear about it, and there'll be a way to submit those that we're working on. And then we are also having a segment called the Fantasy 4, where we are kind of giving like one of those like Sports Center rundowns of some really fun moments in live plays from that week. So, and that won't just be TTRPGs. It'll be board game live streams and all sorts of things.
Well, that would be fun. So you'd be searching other people's live streams and stuff like that for what happened. Oh, that sounds fun.
100%. And then there'll also be a way to submit your own, or to submit someone that you saw. And we will be talking about those. And then my social media, I have to call him social media guy. It's an inside joke, but our social media, the person who's helping me with social media for Tabletop News, he'll probably kill me for saying this here and not letting him tweet about it first. But because we have now experienced what a Kickstarter is, and it is extremely difficult to run a Kickstarter. You've done them. It is also extremely vulnerable and just emotional and difficult. It's very rewarding, and this has been such a really cool experience for us. But because of now what we have experienced, we are dedicating a segment on Tabletop News specifically for crowdfunding campaigns, to be able to showcase and help some of those crowdfunding campaigns out there, because in our experience, we were like, we want to be able to give back to the community in a way, because Kickstarter is all about dreams. It's about supporting someone's dream. And so I think that segment's going to be really cool to be able to kind of spotlight some of these Kickstarter campaigns, and they'll all be tabletop gaming related.
Jason, I did ask her about the OSR, so we did cover that. So it sounded like yes. So that the old school Renaissance games. I mean, I think that's all types of role playing games would be on the table, right?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so we are just about to wrap up here. I'm going to drop the Kickstarter link. Do you want to tell us, give everybody the last call to come to the Kickstarter,
Yes.
Katie, or come to and try to help people get to the stretch goals?
Yes, please check out our Kickstarter. We have a lot of really awesome reward tiers, but most of all, as a backer, you get to be really a part of this series, whether that's sharing news from your table or just kind of being in on the ground floor. And we really are trying to aim for those stretch goals. We want to be able to hire some more talent, bring in new faces to the community. We want to be able to do segments that aren't necessarily virtual segments, so we can actually be boots on the ground. And we want to be able to get to conventions, because that's where the news is, and that's where you are. That's where the community is. And we want to be talking with you. So help us get there, please.
All right. I just put the link to the Kickstarter in the comments. It's also in the description, as well as all of Katie's social media and her YouTube and her Instagram and her Twitter, and all of that is also down there. So you can visit the Kickstarter. Please do back, and then also follow all of Katie's social media so you know what's going on.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Katie, for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so happy you found us yesterday. It was wonderful to check out your channel, and I love your interviews, and everyone who's watching should subscribe.
Thank you. Yes. And I'll see everybody in the morning then at 9:30 in the morning on this channel, 9:30 a.m. Central Time for the Morning Grind. We'll be covering something else in the Geekverse, probably tabletop RPG related again. So I will see everybody tomorrow morning. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you. Appreciate it.